In her 60s, Diane has lived a quiet, dignified life, focused on her work, her routine, and the quiet comfort of being unnoticed. But when Jason, the son of her boss, unexpectedly admits he's been thinking about her for a long time, it shakes her to the core. For the first time in years, Diane finds herself seen, truly seen, and her world begins to unravel in the most unexpected way. Can someone, even in the later chapters of life, rediscover connection and desire? This is a story about rediscovering your worth, embracing change, and learning that love can find you when you least expect it. Hi everyone, I'm Jessica, the storyteller on the Adult Women's Tales channel. Here, I'll share stories about love, conflicts, betrayal, and infidelity within families. These stories offer a deep look into relationships and the challenges families face. Stay tuned and explore with me. If you love emotional stories and want to uncover the hidden secrets in families, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our videos. My age is 61. Quiet dignity has always been a part of my existence, cautious, kind, and never causing trouble. For me, love had turned into something ethereal, like a tale you've heard before but can't remember how it ended. I've been true to my habits ever when my husband passed away 5 years ago. My garden, my job, and my peaceful evenings spent watching old movies and drinking tea. I believed that the days of feeling genuinely noticed were over. However, something occurred a few weeks ago that still terrifies me to this day. I never imagined that I would experience such a thing. Don't make the same mistake I did, please. That night it had poured, the type of slow, soft rain that quiets the environment and makes you think. In order to catch up on certain numbers that my team had miscalculated, I stayed late at work. Greg Bennett, my boss, had called to let me know that his son would be stopping by soon to give me a lift home. Even though he had already left for a dinner meeting, I nearly declined. I didn't want to cause any trouble. Last but not least was Jason, his 20-something son, whom I had only met a few times at Christmas mixers and company picnics. However, Jason's black SUV was parked directly in front of me when I emerged from the building, my umbrella struggling against the wind. With his effortless, youthful vigor, all-tall physique, and gentle assurance, he sprung out and jogged over. The shoulders of his hoodie were drenched. He gave me a nice smile and said, "Hey, Miss Collier. Join in." I turned up the heat. I smiled a little and said, "Just call me Diane, but I'm grateful. Kind of you." He went back to the driver's side as I got into the passenger seat. The room smelled of citrus and leather, and it was warm, maybe gum, maybe cologne. His hands were at ease on the wheel as he smoothly and precisely adjusted the mirrors before pulling off into the roadway. I folded my hands in my lap and remarked, "I hope this isn't too much trouble." Jason gave me a quick glance, his face momentarily unreadable. Absolutely not. To be honest, I needed the motivation. For a while, we rode in solitude, only broken by the wiper's steady swish. The city seemed slower and more subdued than normal as streetlights glistened on the damp pavement. I couldn't help but gaze at him. The small dimple that formed when he grinned at something on the radio, the way his jaw tensed when he focused. He said abruptly, "You've worked with my dad for a long time." "Nearly 2 decades. He gave a nod. "He frequently mentions you and claims that you manage the entire organization." I chuckled quietly. Someone must, after all. His smile fell short of his eyes. Behind his low voice, something was growing. Even before he spoke again, I sensed it. "Does he not? Do you know me?" "More to the road than to me," Jason remarked. "Not what you most likely believe." I swiveled around in my chair. "What are you saying?" After hesitating, he parked the automobile in a little spot next to a park. The rain had subsided to a drizzle, and his face was shadowed in blue by the dashboard's brightness. "I apologize," he said. I realize this is strange. I've been suppressing something for a long time. And even though I didn't believe I'd say anything tonight, I don't think I can continue to act that way now that we're here. I gasped. I had no idea what to anticipate. Perhaps a story about a disagreement with his father, or about a heartbreak or a job loss. However, his next statement, "I've given you some thought for a long time." That probably seems insane, I know. You work with my dad and you're older. I understand. However, I have seen you at such occasions, your demeanor, as though you're composed of something silent and powerful. I'm not sure. I wanted to let you know. I remained silent. I was unable to. The rain had ceased. All I could hear was the heater's soft whir and the rush of blood in my ears. Jason turned to face me, but he made no attempt to approach or make contact. He spoke in a calm, courteous tone. "I have no expectations. You are important, so I just had to say it aloud, and someone who witnesses it ought to tell you that something in my chest twisted." There was an aching I was unaware of, not just because of what he said, but because of how profoundly it disturbed me, something I hadn't acknowledged for years, that perhaps I still desired attention. Perhaps I had not stopped feeling as much as I had believed. At last, I turned to face him, observe him closely. His gaze was neither begging nor demanding. They were simply open, at risk. And more than anything else, that broke me, because I hadn't had that kind of glance in such a long time. That night, I didn't get any sleep. After Jason left me, he did it peacefully, courteously, and without pressuring or requesting anything. The door snapped shut, and I stood in my foyer for a long time, still wearing my coat, staring at it. With the exception of the dim amber lamp beside the staircase, the home was black, and the walls I had known for decades were covered in lengthy shadows. Everything had the same appearance. However, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed inside of me. His words kept repeating in my mind like a tune you've forgotten, but then suddenly recollect. You were on my mind for a long time. Someone who witnesses it should tell you that. It had been years since anyone had said anything like that to me. Perhaps at some point. Not someone like him, anyway. I went through my routine like a ghost the following morning. Opening the curtains to allow in the grudging winter sun, pouring coffee, and feeding my elderly cat Maple. However, I caught myself staring into his eyes as I moved, my hands motionless, my heart thumping in my chest. I stayed away from Greg at work. Despite dressing as usual, I felt excessively exposed, as if I were wearing something too revealing and unsuitable. Smart shoes, a cozy cardigan, and a nice blouse. Even though no one could see it, I had changed. I had a different feeling. Jason texted midweek. I hope I didn't make things strange, just a simple one. If I went too far, I sincerely apologize. Before responding, I looked over the message for 5 whole minutes. You didn't. I appreciate you entrusting me with that. I'm still contemplating. I was surprised when he responded. Go slowly. I just wanted to let you know. Wrapped in a blanket, I sat outside on my tiny porch that evening and listened to the breeze rustle the branches above. Love was on my mind. How I used to perceive it, and how the passing of time had caused it to seem like something that only other people had gone through. People's perceptions of you change when you reach your 60s. You lose your ability to see yourself. However, Jason didn't give me a faded appearance. Greg's assistant called in sick a few days later, leaving us short-handed for a luncheon meeting across town. I offered to drop off some material to a local client's office because Greg was already completely scheduled. Jason was leaning against his SUV once more with his hands in his jacket pockets when I went outside. "Diane, hello. You might need a driver," Dad added. This time, his smile was softer, less assured, nearly, "Be cautious." My heart skipped a beat as I paused. "Are you certain you can handle it?" He pulled open the passenger door. "Always." It was a quieter drive than before. The city went by in a haze of movement and late fall light, and the radio was off. The tension was palpable to me. It was delicate, like a thread being dragged between us, yet neither heavy nor awkward. I turned to him as we arrived at the building. "Did you truly mean what you said that evening?" He looked at me without flinching, every single syllable. Slowly, I nodded. "I have a lot to think about. You're still young. I am." "Don't," he said, not angrily. "Don't let that define who you are. You are more than your years. You're Diane. You're intelligent and kind, and the room seems to soften when you laugh." I noticed that I had no idea those words would hurt me so hard. Over the years, I had constructed walls. His remarks slipped right through the quiet, solid walls of restraint and civility. As our fingers touched, I gave him the packet I needed delivered. He had a warm touch, steady. He said, "I'll be back in 5. He was, too. He turned to me one last time as he parked in front of the office, but we didn't say much on the drive back. "I don't want to cause you any confusion or discomfort, but I did mean what I said, and I'm fine with just reminding you of your worth." I took a while to reply. I hesitated before reaching for the door handle. I answered quietly, "You did remind me," and I was unaware of how much I needed it. There was something behind his smile this time, perhaps a patient sort of optimism or a calm grief. With my heart hammering against my ribs, I stepped out into the chilly air and softly shut the door behind me. I hadn't experienced this in years, but something was stirring inside of me, and even though I wasn't sure where it was going, I knew that this wasn't the end. Everything seemed loud inside of me, even if the weekend arrived softly. Even though it was already too late in the season, I occupied myself with tasks, folding clothes that didn't need to be folded, rearranging spice jars, and even pruning my little rose bush in the backyard. However, I was unable to stop the ideas from racing through my mind. The subtle, inconspicuous brushing of our hands, Jason's words, and his voice all made me uneasy. His tone, as though I hadn't been invisible for years, as though I wasn't someone to be pitied or politely tolerated, as though I mattered in a manner I hadn't dared to think anymore, was more important than what he said. That night, as the fireplace flickered next to me, I sat in the living room with an unfinished book in my lap. The wind outside gently rocked the windows, and suddenly my phone buzzed as though the cosmos knew I couldn't be silent for another second. "Are you relaxed, Jason? Is it acceptable if I drop by?" My heart pounded as I gazed at the message. I was aware of what this might or might not mean. I was aware of the risks involved in reopening long-buried emotions, but I also knew that if I refused, I would be up all night wondering what he would have said. Yes, I did type back, however briefly. After 20 minutes, his SUV arrived in the driveway. Wearing a soft gray sweater over a dark jacket, he went out. His hair, moist from the foggy weather, was caught in the doorway light. Before he knocked, I opened the door. He said, almost nervously, "Hello?" "Come in," I said, moving to the side. As he entered, he looked about the foyer, admiring the peaceful house I had spent decades creating. It's just as I had envisioned. Warm. We took our seats in the living room. He took the drink I offered him. He sat on the edge of the couch, and I sat in my armchair, opposite each other. Like something awaiting recognition, there was a charge in the air, along with the distance. He said, in a quiet, cautious voice, "I didn't come here to push anything." All I wanted to do was converse, without any desire. I put my hands around my mug and nodded. I confessed that I had no idea what to say. For a very long time, I believed that a phase of my life was over. The point where people give me that kind of stare, then you did. Jason put his elbows on his knees and leaned forward a little. It's not finished yet. Diane, you don't realize how bright you are. You possess this silent might, and it's possible that nobody ever told you that. I swallowed a lump that was growing in my throat and turned aside. Jason, that's the issue. Nobody ever did. Not really. Not even my hubby. We weren't soulmates. We were just friends. And once he died, I convinced myself it was sufficient and that I no longer needed to be perceived in that manner. But, he added softly, you do. And that's all right. Before I could stop them, the tears started. A few silent, painful droplets, but no sobbing. He simply let the stillness linger in a kind, considerate manner without moving or reaching for me. I got up after a time and went to the window, observing the rain's glistening effect on the glass. I hardly raised my voice above a whisper. I have the need to shut this door. I want to return to my calm life after thanking you for reminding me that I still have a heart. And behind me, he said, what's the other part? I pivoted. He continued to wait while seated. The other part is curious about what it's like to be understood and wanted, even if just briefly. Then Jason stood, cautiously, slowly. Instead of approaching me, he simply stood across the room with his hands hanging loosely by his sides. Let's begin there, with the facts. No games, no demands. Two people attempting to rekindle their feelings. It seemed impossible for the room to move. I moved forward a step at a time until we were only a breath away. I spoke softly but firmly as I glanced up at him. I have no idea where this is going. Don't have to, he whispered. You simply must allow it. And I did, right then, with the rain outside, the fire's warmth behind us, and our shadows colliding on the ground. I gave in to an emotion I had suppressed for too long. Not quite want, not quite yet, but intimacy, I hope. The delicate start of anything unsaid. I wasn't touched by him. He simply stood beside me in the silence, as if that were sufficient. And it was, somehow. The days that followed felt like a steady, honest unraveling, not a flurry or a mess, like removing a thread you didn't know was loose. I followed the same procedures as I went about my world. Coffee in the morning, office work, and feeding Maple before bed. However, everything seemed more alert. It is both more alive and more delicate. Jackson took his time doing things. He didn't try to claim my time or my thoughts, or bombard my phone with texts. But in small ways, he was present. A text message, good morning, a picture of a book he believed I would enjoy, just to listen to my voice, a quick call in the evenings. And I discovered that I wanted that, not only the attention, but also the genuineness of it. He listened to me without attempting to correct me. The way he looked past appearances, I discovered him waiting in the parking lot once more on a Thursday night, following an especially demanding workday. With his hands in the pockets of the jacket he had on the night he arrived, he leaned against his SUV. I walked up to him and he said, "You seem exhausted." "I am," I grinned. "However, it helps to see you." As before, he opened the passenger door. "I'll drive you home. Come on." On the journey, we didn't say much. We had settled into a comfortable stillness, not something that needed to be filled, but a peaceful spot to rest. He switched off the engine as we came into my driveway, but he remained inside. "May I ask you a question?" "Oh," he said. I gave a nod. "What scares you the most at the moment regarding this?" I stared at him for a while. His youthful features were softened by the dashboard's shadows, which gave him an ageless appearance. Just present, neither younger nor older. I confessed that I would lose myself. I'm going to forget how to be Diane, that I will begin to wish for something that I am not permitted to desire. Jason carefully extended his arm to grasp my hand. His hand was steady and warm. He answered, "You don't have to lose yourself. Additionally, you are free to desire anything you like. You've been a giver throughout your life. Perhaps it's time to let someone return the favor." I gazed at our hands below. My chest ached from the tenderness with which his fingers encircled mine. I muttered, "I have no idea what this is. I don't want to flee from it, though." His smile wasn't melancholy this time. It was a silent elation, as if he had been anticipating that, but had never thought I would say it. Then he urged, "Don't, let's simply navigate it together." That evening, he entered without rush or anticipation, just by being there. I made tea while he sat at my kitchen table. We discussed our early marriage, my loneliness that I never expressed, his mother who died when he was a youngster, and our early childhood recollections. Like presenting a delicate relic to someone, we reverently and carefully shared fragments of ourselves. I didn't know how late it had become until hours later. He lingered close to the door, standing slowly. "Would you like me to leave?" Gently, he inquired. I took a while to respond. I moved in closer and gave him a gentle, trusting touch on the chest. "No, please stay for a little bit." He nodded, realizing in that instant that he understood more than most people had in years. On the couch, we sat together. He covered us both with the blanket. His hand returned to mine as my head landed on his shoulder. There was only presence, no kisses, no confessions, no frantic grabbing. Warmth. The subdued beat of two people who simply had feelings to share and nothing to prove. And I came to a realization amid that silence. It has nothing to do with age. It has nothing to do with timing or regulations. It was about making a connection, about getting noticed, and about overcoming the anxiety that prevented me from acknowledging that there might be someone who truly wants to make room for me. I closed my eyes and finally allowed myself to believe that perhaps love, in all its odd, flawed forms, can still find you even when you thought it was too late. As the fire turned to embers and the night around us, particularly at that time. That's it for today's story. If you found it moving, don't forget to share the video with your friends and family. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.